So, hello, shall we?
Hi, Caitlin.
Um,
Morning.
so the conversation I wanted to have with you today is, I know that after we met in Edinburgh at Agile Alliance, that I knew you were planning to, and you've been presenting clean. And when I've seen you present, or the presentation I saw at Agile Alliance, it's like you're very good at presenting a thing that's a real thing that people can do and take away and use straight away. But at the same time, it's things that it's really clear, and it's generous invitation to go, oh, this thing is a part of this thing, as a part of this thing, as a part of this thing. It's like you've taken lots of beautiful threads and woven them together just for this. And so I'm interested, and I love the visual way that you do it. I'm interested in, how did you present the clean, and can you take us through it? So I think someone else does it.
Yeah, thanks. So the thing is, and so you use the word present. I usually use the word workshop, because for me, and that was also the case in the workshop in Edinburgh, if I want people to kind of explore the threads and be like comfortable with the stuff, to me, it's really key that they play around with it, but not only with the thing, but also with the things around, so that they can see what the context is about. And when you look at clean, or when somebody looks at clean and glosses over it, they might say, oh, it's just a couple of questions, right? Because it's just questions, right?
Yeah.
And the thing I realize is that it's actually more than that. It's not just questions. It's really the way that one enters a relationship with others. So the way that I started the workshop, but actually I'm going to show you, but I will need to remove some stuff. So actually what I said is since it's a conversation, it's all about how do we enter that conversation with others? And well, when I was introduced to clean, the first topic, because I mean, for entering a conversation, we need to have a kind of starting point, an opener. And so in that workshop, without telling anything about clean, apart, of course, that it was discovered, invented, created, crafted by David Grove, and then explored by other people, I said, hey, let's just start with a conversation. And the starting point where I actually demonstrated it is I was with somebody and I asked them, hey, when you work at your best, you're like what? Which is like the starting point. And then what I did, so that person was there, and then she said some words, and then I used the two, like, I'm going to call them the Pareto questions, about Pareto, 80%, 20%. Is like, what kind of X is that X? So like I would pick a word and then go further with that. And then is there anything else about X? And just play around with that for a couple of minutes. And then afterwards, I invited the people to practice it using only those questions. Well, we debriefed a little bit on what they noticed. It was really interesting what they noticed, because there was a lot of active listening. There was a lot of these things, and okay, you're just repeating the words and so on. But then I think it's interesting to have this observer effect and then start playing with it. So then I invited them in pairs. So I didn't we were lucky to have an odd number of people, and I had a timekeeper. So I asked the timekeeper to go with to make sure that everyone could be in pairs, and then I asked them to experiment using the questions they saw, without giving any other explanation, so that they could really try it out and explore it.
Can I pause you for a moment there, shall we?
Yeah, of course.
Just because that's something that I say a lot, is don't teach it, use it very quickly. So I know what my reasons for that is, that for me, clean cannot be sold. It's not an invitation, it's an invitation to attention, but it can't be sold to people. But what's your reason for getting them to play straight away with minimal explanation?
Well, it's the key thing is to tie it back to what they observed just before. They observed a conversation, modeling conversation, or a conversation that I was modeling in front of them. And then they noticed things, but they were not part of it. And I think there's a really different way when you just look at it from a distance, when you observe a clean conversation happening without knowing anything about clean, and then you try experiencing it. Remember in Edinburgh, when you were doing your clean session, lots of people were saying that it was actually quite hard, even though these questions are simple, you know, because people are complex enough. That thing about it being hard, I think it's important that people get the possibility to play with it early on, so that they see that it's not just questions. Oh, I need to be attentive to what the other person's saying. Oh, what if I don't remember all the words? Oh. And so this, I could tell them, and then they could nod.
Yeah. Yeah, lovely. Yeah, I'm just, because and I think it's so complex just to ask one or two questions.
Yep.
That if you share the whole lot, it can be overwhelming.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I started with the Pareto questions. The what kind of X? And then is there anything else about X? Because even though, I mean, first of all, I was doing this session in Vilnius, Lithuania, and I think most of the people were Lithuanian. So I guess I know they talked in Lithuanian. And I didn't think of providing Lithuanian clean questions. I could have asked Ornella to maybe make some or like craft some for. But the thing is there anything else about this? Is very clean because you don't put any assumption in that. But tell me more about this. Might still be kind of similar, but it's not quite.
No, and it brings it's very similar for some people, but not when you really understand clean.
Yeah.
Because it's to do with it's why I call my company Training Attention. It's to do with where you train their attention. So tell me about it, says give me a gift.
Yeah.
Whereas clean questions train their attention on their own experience. Yeah. We're both looking in the same direction.
Yeah, and even what you think about that, how do you feel about that, might look similar, but they're not. And so this is the reason why I want them to apply it or play with it straight away. And then there's the important part where we debriefed. Okay, how did it go? You had 2 questions to play with. Now come back to me in English, of course, because I don't speak Lithuanian. And so that was also quite interesting to see. And then some people said, okay, and what was also very interesting, you talk about attention, is that many people were making the link between these questions and coaching, mentoring, aka, as I translated it, fixing the other person. and this is where then, you know, based on that first debrief, I could then put it back into context. And coming back to the title of my session, which was actually an exploration. I like this idea of exploration being like you just navigate around the thing without ever, you know, touching it or changing it. So you're really exploring what it means. And so we did that. And then after that debrief, I gave them actually another task, and I said, okay, now I don't remember if I asked them to do a second round, but then we were about, okay, you've seen these 2 questions. And before we go any further, I asked them, how are clean questions actually different? Because yes, I could teach them. I could tell them, hey, by the way, be very, you know, like cautious about not influencing. Or I could tell them, hey, by the way, when you do clean, you know, it's about like really using the other person's words and not influencing, or not it's not influencing, but not inferring any meaning into the words that they use. But I like to start with what the group or where the group is and what they need.
So I'm just going to again pause you, because these are very teaching this when I'm teaching systemic modeling facilitation. This is a very subtle, but it's a really important point. And I say to them, when I say, what are you noticing? What I'm looking for is the structure of what I have to do next.
Mm.
But if you tell them what they should be noticing, you have no idea where their attention is.
Yeah.
And so it's subtle, but it's really, really vital. Yeah, so I really appreciate that. And it may well just be that, it might be why we get on so well, but it might just be that our facilitation outlook aligns. But also these are the subtle differences that I struggle sometimes to teach people. I struggle to work out how to get them to grasp that yeah, it might seem faster to tell them what they should be noticing, but then you'll never know where their attention was naturally.
And exactly, this is why I use that question, so that based on that, I know where their attention is. I know a bit about clean, and then we can like find parts to put two and two together.
Yeah.
Which are relevant to the group.
Yes. And in some ways, what I like about that is that it's code congruent with what clean does. So with a clean question, you know, you say when you're working, you'd have to tell me when you're working at your best, you're like what? What do you like?
When I'm working at my best, I'm like exploring or going in an adventure through the forests, the woods,
So
something
exploring
like that.
or going on an adventure through the forest and the woods. So there's a little bunch of words. And the clean questions are like little tests. They say, oh, what kind of exploring? What kind of forest?
Yeah.
Oh, woods, forest or woods. And they see where, and some of these questions you ask them, and there's a little bit of stuff, but nothing special.
Yeah.
And other questions you ask them, and then it opens a whole new bit.
Yeah.
But what you don't do is to say, but it's all done adjacent to where the attention is of the individual you're speaking to. But what you can't say is, oh, you must have had an adventurous childhood.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that would be nonsense.
And that
and
comes back to what one of the people said there. It's unassuming.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I mean, maybe I haven't had an adventure. Maybe my childhood was just boring. And I was dreaming of adventures. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's none of that person's concern, actually.
And also it's because of the way that you're asking them, you know, how are they different? And let's just see what they already noticed, because there's no point teaching them what they already know. And there's no point teaching them what they can't grasp yet.
Exactly. Yeah.
You might as well find out where their attention is and teach just just extend it just that bit.
Yes. Also, because in my world, when I run away, and we talked about that just before we started the recording, and so when I go facilitate a workshop at a conference or somewhere else, my focus is that people grasp it well enough so that they can try it out. I'm not interested into, you know, hey, this is a little bit, and if you want more, you have to pay for the full package. Because I'm just me. Yes, okay, there's many other people that do that stuff, but I can't be at several places at once. And so I'd like people to play with the stuff. And if they want more, well, yeah, they can contact anyone. It doesn't have to be me. But I feel it's kind of, you know, dishonest, and that's just me, to kind of just open up Pandora's box and leave the keys in my pocket. And then, hey, if you want more, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And also, I think this is one of the things I said in my talk at in Edinburgh is, if you just had 2 clean questions and you ask them every day, nearly everything else that you need can come out of that.
Yeah.
If you just had clean feedback and you do clean feedback every day, you'll learn the clean questions, because it becomes obvious to you that your assumptions are not the evidence, that they're separate things. So yeah. I think that a little bit that's practiced well, as long as people know where they can get more if they need more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that's what I said to you just before, I really appreciate about you, is it's definitely something that you can definitely do a job with.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. And what was interesting is, after debrief, really some some very insightful comments came about, and then the group was like, okay, but like, if it's not about fixing the person, what are application context, what are application possibilities? And some people thought like, yeah, but how would that work in this situation or in that situation? And so instead of answering them, we practiced it. One person told me, hey, but imagine I'm in a team and we're late for our delivery, and I need to go with my manager. Like, how would the manager then use clean questions for that? That sounds a little bit like far-fetched. Like, I don't know. Let's try it out. And so the first thing we tried out was the like normal situation without clean, and where actually very soon I started entering into either questioning or helping or blaming mode. And then we moved on to the clean. And there the conversation was totally different. And then the person said, oh yeah, okay, now I see the power of clean, just to explore the situation without offering unrequested support, without blaming, without contempt, if I may say so.
Yeah, because fixing, the desire to fix, has a tiny flavor of contempt in it.
Yeah. Let me help you. Right.
We had something similar. I was working yesterday with about 70 people, where there's a lot of entrenched drama in the, and I had a lovely student. And he said at some point, he said, are you going to give them the tools to get out of this? I said, oh, no. I said, that's such a dire mistake. I said, we have 45 minutes together with them. All we're going to do is to teach them to get interested.
Yeah.
Because without that, none of the other tools are of any use. Let's just
exactly.
So how do we set it so that they could just get interested?
Yep.
Because they might not need any more than that. People are incredibly clever and creative so long as they're curious. So
yeah. And this is the key. This is about not giving them the tools that I think that they need. I'm adding this. I'm teaching this facilitation class over a couple of months to a group of people, and recently they were asked as a kind of homework to watch a video, to share it with some people, then have a conversation about that. So in the session that followed, we started, putting them into breakout rooms so that they could like debrief together and prepare something. And then coming back, one person said, oh, actually in our group, I was the only one who had seen the video. And then some others said, oh yeah, we hadn't seen the video in our group. No one had watched the video, and so on and so forth. So actually we realized that most of the people hadn't watched it. So well, the thing was, then I used that as a starting point. No point in blaming okay, now we'll all watch the video. It was more about like, okay, hey, we're all on this journey to become facilitators. What does this tell us about the whole facilitation aspect? And because in some groups they were saying, I would have loved my colleagues to have watched the video so that we could have deeper conversations about it. Because the video was related to a topic we had seen in the session before. And so like, they realized that the depth of their conversation were shallow. And that's interesting when you're facilitating, because then it's like, hey, actually, when you work with groups and they haven't done their homework,
then what do you do?
Yeah.
I think there's I don't quite know where the prayer comes from, but essentially it says, I am here, what next? And it's that, as opposed to fanciful. One of the things I said to the group last night, I said, you might want us to be over here, like somebody needs to stop, somebody needs to change. I said, but actually, and we've been over here, but actually we're just here now. Yeah. What are we going to do? What's the best use we can make of the fact that no one's watched that video?
Yep.
I think that's a real principle of clean, is be present to what is and make the best use that we can now. Yeah, not be in the past. It's a bit Eckhart Tolle, the moment is right.
Yeah.
So you use a lot of visual.
Yes.
And I really admire it.
Oh, thanks.
Is that something that you teach as well? If I heard you,
yes,
do facilitation.
Yes, so I teach visual facilitation or visual thinking, so the thing is, it's not really about a drawing. even though it may look fancy or nice. It's more about like, how do I bring about ideas or topics or situations visually? Yes, of course, I can like make my workshop setup like this. Oh, wait. With interesting visuals. Where is it? Or, you know, like I can use it here, like, you know, for the clean questions. And then I can ask, you know, okay, and then where is X? And then I would add it here so that I can also not overwhelm the people with all the questions at the beginning, you know, and then, okay, and then let's add another question. And then what happens, you know, and then we would use this. Or for check-in activity, you know, like putting all the steps so that I can explain and people have anchor points. But all in all, I think, and I'm going to see if I have a clean or an empty sheet of paper. I don't. No, I don't. But in the end, it's more about like, and this is in French, but no one cares. This is about like, when you want to create your poster, it's about like, what is the process that you need to do before you can create your poster? And there's a whole thinking process through it. Because when you have one sheet of paper, actually, you cannot put tons of stuff in it. And that's the trap that many people fall into when they go into PowerPoint mode. Oh, there's that bit of information that's really crucial, coming back into, I'm going to teach them what I know. But it's more about removing this stuff.
I think that might be a next stage in my development. So that might be something I might come to you with, which is because it's still another modeling process. And, you know, I might as well model something that somebody else has put a load of work into rather than model it straight out of my own mind.
Yeah.
Okay, in terms of time, we probably need to stop now. Is there anything else that you think is vital about teaching clean, the way that you teach clean?
I love that you use the word that I teach clean, because in my mind I still feel like I've only done it at conferences, so like I'm not official, and I know you've already nudged me into doing something. So like actually this is your question brings me more of an invitation into, hey, why don't I just put something out there and see what happens? So yeah, thanks for that.
Well, I'm going to stop the recording now. Thank you for that conversation. I think that'll be really, well, I'm hoping that'll be really useful for other people who are just wanting to experiment with it, and some key principles of bringing it in little bite-size digestible chunks.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I hope so too. Yeah.